Bam! What is going on? MC is in the house. My name is Justin Garcia, also known as Master Chim, and welcome to the Warrior Stream. This is number 36. And those of you that are paying attention, we've been at this for a while. I'm here every Wednesday, noon Eastern Standard Time, and today we're going to talk about some stuff. Right? I got some things prepped for the conversation, and before we get into that, as you guys jump on, let me take care of the regular housekeeping nonsense. And that is, if you guys are not yet on my email list, please go and do that. Go to masterchim.com, put your email in. You get a free email every day. Always a quote of the day, letting you guys know what's going on. I got some big things coming up in the next couple of weeks and months. I'm not ready to announce too much of it yet, but I've been grinding over here, setting up the trajectory for the next year's efforts, and it's looking good. It's looking good. It's got me fired up. So let me do a quick check in here to the comments. Cairo Man, what's going on? Brick session at the gym, listening to the Warrior Stream. That's what I'm talking about. Brick sessions, obviously a reference to my Master the 24-Hour Cycle program. Brick sessions is what I call the little blocks of time that we schedule during the day within a framework that is described in that program. But good for you, my man. Matt Shell, what's going on? Good to see you. Corey, what's going on? Voodoo Man in the house. Good to see you, brother. Jamie, up in Canada. What's going on, brother man? Yarn Saxa, hello, darling. How are you doing? Please tell the your gentleman that I said what's up as well. I don't know if he's going to be able to make it today, but a lot of regulars checking in. It's always good to see. So today, who else we got here? Alan, Leonardo, what's going on? Good to see you. They Want Us to Watch is the name of the Warrior Stream today. It's what I decided to title it, and obviously there's some meanings to that. If you're getting the emails in the morning, I always prompt these Warrior Streams with an email in the morning, pretty much going over what I want to cover. What's up, Logan? Woden's Day, absolutely. Goose, what's up, brother man? Juan, number one in my book. So the idea of, wanting us to watch, we're going to start off. I actually made sure I started doing things a little bit better and prepped a couple of just guides for today's talk. You guys, if you've been following me for any length of time, you know that I am the king of tangents. Obviously, my ego tells me that all of the tangents are worth a shit, so it's not really the end of the world, but I also want to make sure I'm getting what my intended message was across whenever I do these videos. So that being said, we're going to start off with watching versus living. And what's up, Matt? Big Matt. Watching versus living. So They Want Us to Watch is the name of the talk and what I wanted to go over. So I got to talk about, obviously we're going to get to they. And I wanted to start off, though, by drawing this comparison between watching and living. So a lot of different ways we could look at this. Basically it's, are you somebody who is getting your sense of status, your sense of, relevance, significance from observing the deeds of others, the adventures of others, the stories of others? Or are you somebody who is not preoccupied with getting access to energy in that way and is pretty much more old school about it? You're the guy or the lady who goes out and does the stuff, goes out and get things done. And there's a great dichotomy among society now. And plenty of ways that we could dissect society in terms of behavior, but through this lens, watching versus living is a significant one. How many of you right now woke up today and did absolutely nothing for your long-term mission. And by long-term mission, it's really not a goal so much as it is a self-actualization. How many of you guys have woken up today and said, okay, I have an assortment of things that I'm going to accomplish during this day, and some of it is going to be out of necessity, obligation even, i.e., go to work. You got to do what you got to do because of all the benefits that are connected to that. But what about those times that you aren't necessarily obligated to? Somebody else isn't going to be looking at you and going, hey, where are you? How come you're not here? Or those things that you're doing just so somebody maybe in tribe is not, chastising you or insulting you or giving you any sort of negative pressure, right? We call that negative reinforcement, by the way, in operant conditioning. When you do something in order to stop something bad from happening, that's negative reinforcement. You're reinforced, you're incentivized to do something because when you do it, something else is removed. And as we condition ourselves, how much of that is really geared towards removing pressure, removing what one would consider to be punishment, even using some operant conditioning terms again. How much of what we're doing is designed to do that, but designed to do that in a way that there's not necessarily something you're building upon. It's really, how do we just keep the boogeyman away yet another day? As opposed to, I'm going to invest in this suffering, this pressure, this resistance, whatever it is, along this guided plan or mission, this path. And I know no matter where it winds up, because there's going to be detours along the way, I know that it's going to wind up accumulating into something significant. When you have a daily cycle, right? I call it the 24-hour cycle. When you have that 24-hour cycle sort of repeat itself in a way where there is no ground gained at the tail end of it, then you are literally preoccupying yourself until you die. Now, we could sit here and say, well, everybody dies, and certainly everybody dies. But what is the value of your life if you haven't contributed past the scope of the 24-hour cycle? How are you different from the rat? How are you different from the pigeon who just wakes up and just does their rat pigeon stuff over and over again until one day they don't wake up? Or one day they go to sleep early, right? We're past that. Our minds are capable of more than that. So being that that's the case, you have a scenario by which you are never going to truly understand what you're supposed to be doing because you spend every single day watching the adventures, the expectations, the missions of others. Now, the opposite of that, the living aspect of it, what is living like? Living is a mindset that starts internally without any consideration for anybody else, including your children, including your spouse, including your family. It starts with you. And you wake up every day asking yourself, not literally, but the point being, the concept, the idea being, you come to grips with who you are, what it is you want to accomplish. You pay attention to every aspect of who you are. And then you start to navigate your day in accordance with all those realizations and in whichever way that they manifest themselves. So what am I talking about? I'm starting to sound like a sophist. I'm using too many, abstract concepts when describing what I'm talking about, right? So the idea is when you wake up, okay, you got to go to work. You got to pay the bills. On the way to work, what are you doing? Are you listening to music? Are you reading a book? Are you listening to a book? Are you watching a video? Okay, you wanna Listen to music. Okay, what's the point of listening to music? Well, music's fun. Okay, music's fun. We could do things that are fun all day long, but obviously we know that's not going to work. So we have to have some sort of filter by which we say, okay, this is what needs to happen in order for me to do this. And if we're talking about now listening to music as the example that I chose, what allows you to listen to music? Well, I could do what I want. Well, not necessarily. If you got to go to the bathroom, you're going to find a place to go to the bathroom. If you don't want to do that, then you're going to have a problem. But usually we want to go to the bathroom strong enough at some point. We want to do it. We feel it, we have to do it, we want to do it. But when it comes to the things that we do throughout the day, listening to music on the way to work, watching the news. Why do you watch the news? I want to know what's going on. Okay. Why? Because I think as an adult, one should understand, what's going on. Okay. But at what cost? I think if we have this expectation of sort of validating everything that we do throughout the day, and then compare those validations, those stories we tell ourselves, with what we would separately say our goals are in life, or who we want to be, or what we're building toward, I think a lot of us would wind up with some work to do. We would find that, we're saying we're going to do this, we're saying we want to do this, but then when we look at the collection of all of our rituals, we wind up not doing that for some reason. And that is where we begin to see this dichotomy of watching life as opposed to living life. Watching is allowing the external to inform the internal, whereas living is the internal informing the external. There are things that you, no matter who you are going to refuse to do. I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do that. And you will hold fast to that all the way up to the highest level of consequence. It's a powerful thing when we have those beliefs. A man or a woman who doesn't have a belief that is unconditional is a malleable individual, is somebody who it's just a matter of pressure. Or think about something that melts at a certain level of heat. Well, life has an ambient temperature. Some people melt in the ambient temperature of life, right? And those people, they usually find a way out, or they find some sort of disaster or circumstance, this catastrophic circumstance at some point. But then we have people that they don't melt at the ambient temperature of life. But they find themselves, whenever they look to climb beyond their current position, their current relationship with their surroundings based on their internal standards, they find that climb raises the temperature. And then as the temperature raises, they start to sweat, and eventually they start to melt. And then they tell themselves, well, I don't belong at this level of temperature. I need to go back down where it's a little bit cooler because that's where I'm supposed to be. There are other people that they don't melt at those temperatures. They continue to go up. They continue to achieve, expose themselves to pressure, and they never have a problem. But most of us aren't those people either. Most of us are the one that I just described, that at a certain level of heat, we start to melt. But then we got to ask ourselves, well, how do we rectify that? How do we remedy that? Who is it that we're supposed to be helping from day to day if we want to become stronger as an individual to be able to withstand a little bit more heat, a little bit more pressure? Right? And if we reduce the relationship we have with our ability to withstand pressure to a series of rituals done repetitively over and over, maybe that's a little bit of a concession one would have to make, but that's my position. My position is who you are is really going to be the consequence or the accumulation of what your daily rituals are, right? Because we're always conditioning ourselves to become something, right? So looking at the relationship between watching and living, we start to see, some choices that we can make, and maybe some choices that we've made up until this point, right? So let's get to who is it that wants you distracted. Well, distraction is a funny thing because it doesn't always appear as distraction. In business, a lot of people, they conflate business with sheer busyness, right? I'm going to be busy. I got so much stuff to do. My day's packed. Well, you must be doing well. Well, what is the metric that we are using to determine that? Is it a full workload? Is it a full bandwidth? Or is there some other disconnected metric that we could use to determine whether or not we're making progress, to determine what success is supposed to look like? Well, I would argue those people that want you distracted are the people who don't want you having that sort of internal, introspective process that has you sort of reboot your computer on a regular basis. So the easy answer of who wants you distracted is sure, the media groups, the marketers, the people, the pharmaceutical companies, right? I was just listening to a commercial this morning, and I don't really listen to radio a lot, but I happened to be listening to radio this morning, going to buy a box of Monsters as I was, and there was an ad for and this is the radio, so it's an audio ad for some medicine, some drug. And what they were describing that this drug treated, and it starts with do you have this symptom, that symptom, and, it could be a million things that could come from these symptoms, but they pitch, it could be this fancy name for some disease that they thought of. And this is what you should talk to your doctor about, potentially getting prescribed for that condition. It's like, yeah, that's a distraction. That's a distraction. The people that are obsessed with the politics going on the planet, there's a difference between understanding, what's going on and being able to influence and control it. A lot of people haven't come to grips with the fact that you're just not significant enough on the grand stage to make waves or to influence at that level of scale. Two people arguing about the president on social media, and these people don't know each other. What is it that you win at the end of this fight you're having, this argument, this debate you're having? It's like, okay, you want to have a debate? Okay, that's fine. What's the prize, or what's the result, right? Let's not trivialize it too much and call it a prize, but what is the consequence? What is the result, or what is I would assume you would think is a benefit? What's the benefit from having these arguments? Some people will say, well, it's to really tighten up my positions so I could. Okay. Okay. Oh, great debater, preparing for the great debate stage of life with individuals that you don't even fucking know, that aren't connected to you. Like, how many times have you gotten into these debates and this stranger, this disconnected person went, you know what? I never thought about it like that. You might be right. That's not what it's for. This is self-validation. This is, dopamine hits. This is excitement. This is significance. This is distraction. MC, who do you think is going to be the next president? I don't fucking know. I can give you an answer. But my attachment to this whole conversation is so low. Should I even give an answer? Should I even support the conversation by participating in it? Should I dignify all the people that want to argue every single detail about dynamics that they have absolutely no influence over? Should I dignify that way of looking at life by even participating in these exchanges? sometimes we got to talk about some stuff. Sometimes, there are some things that you want a little bit of clarity, but the purpose, the mission of that should always be, because that's going to inform what you do, not how well you fare in these debates with strangers on social media platforms. So who wants you distracted? All of the people that are operating at a level of scale that you have no influence over directly. Because this is what happens. If there's somebody who is going to distract you from pursuing your mission as an individual, understand the cost. The reason why we say those people are a negative influence on one's life is because they distract us from our individual mission. Well, we could choose to turn our back to these people and focus on our mission at any point. But that's not what people do. So here's another thing. I put a video up yesterday. I was at the gym, and there was some lady, this fat lady, who, listen, she's at the gym. Can't make fun of fat people at the gym. She was at the gym. But she got a phone call. No, she got a beep on her phone. I could only assume it was a notification. I don't know if it was a text or whatever it was. But she got it. She opened it. I heard something play on her phone. Then she closed it. Then she called somebody. And whoever answered on the other line said, they just put up another video. You have to see it. I'll call you when I'm done, or whatever it was. And I was just disgusted. It's like, how long are you at the gym? 30 minutes? 40? An hour? You can't fucking stop doing that for an hour? Like, she's an overweight woman. She needed to get the work in. She's there. She gets all the credit in the world for that. But these rituals are normalized in our society, and people don't understand the costs of them. I have some of my coaching students who are one of the things that is a recurring theme is them running into problems because they always have their fucking phone on them. And me going, well, leave the phone in the car, leave the phone here, remove these apps. I mean, like trying to find the steps that will make it just easy enough for them to start building some momentum. But the logic is always, well, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you checking Facebook when you're with your children? Like, just step back for a second and ask yourself how fucking retarded that is. So in this video yesterday, I meant it was a short thing. I filmed it right there. There's some irony that I'm posting on social media, criticizing, that. But I told, disconnect from your notifications. Don't get notifications. Ideally, you have a social media, hour. You have a social media time scheduled. And this is what I mentioned in the video. If it's that important, you'll do it. But if it's not that important, then what is it that you're doing? You're allowing yourself to be distracted because of the feedback that you get. Because you've conditioned yourself to rely on the instant gratification that social media provides. So who wants you distracted? Oh, we would like to say it's just the bad actors, the ne'er-do-wells that exist at the global level, right? At the elite level. Like, not always. Sometimes it's just the YouTube personality. Sometimes it's the guy that wants to convince you that you need medicine. Sometimes it's anybody that's vying for your attention because you participating with them is going to benefit them. And all I'm saying is, if you are going to participate in these rituals with these people, these individuals, are you benefiting as well? Right? Are you benefiting as well? So let's now talk about the cost of your attention. Well, these people are vying for your attention, and one of the things that I just spoke about was, you need to find a way to connect in a way that produces synergy. The energy that you are giving toward an interaction with another person, especially if it's repetitive, habitualized, like it needs to have a return. That makes it an investment. And if there is a output or a target of your resources that does not produce a return, we define that as a waste. So if you are engaging in these rituals without some sort of trackable return, you are literally wasting time and energy. So what's the cost of that time and energy? Well, one of the problems, the hiccups, the obstacles for individuals is they don't know what their time and energy is worth to begin with. They don't have a better target for their time and energy. Well, if I'm not playing Xbox, what the fuck am I going to do for 3 hours when I get home? And they ask that as if it's an argument for the thing that they've already chosen, as opposed to a legitimate question that should be researched and developed. What should you be doing? Well, what do you get from Xbox? Well, what else can you do during that time, and what would you get from that? And the problem is, and I'll continue to use the Xbox example for a second, the problem is that individuals will argue against the alternative to the Xbox because the alternative, one of the costs of the alternative is they can't play the Xbox because they've so internalized and ingrained that ritual in who they think they're supposed to be that the cessation, the stopping of that ritual has them see it as a loss. So if you have an individual, going with another analogy here, if you have an individual who twisted his knee or broke his leg and has a crutch, right, as crutches, there's a point where the crutches are going to help him. There's a point where the crutches begin to hurt him. And they don't hurt him in that he could no longer ambulate with the crutches. There's a certain point where the crutches hurt because they prevent him reclaiming the autonomy that did not rely on crutches to begin with. So even if these rituals in your life, if you want to say, okay, because Xbox, it's kind of hard to argue the value of Xbox over something else that's productive. But let's just say we're not talking about something that we could argue that is always a waste of time. You know, not that I think Xbox is always a waste of time, by the way, but if we're saying, oh yeah, well, Xbox, okay, so I don't play Xbox, so what's the big deal? So let's just talk about the things that maybe you needed. But do you still need them? I remember having a conversation with one of my coaching students, and he said that he needed to smoke weed at night to fall asleep. And I was like, all right, you know, I'm not into smoking weed. I've never smoked weed in my life. So I'm not that guy, you know, I'm not that guy that, oh, okay, yeah, you smoke some weed, you know. I'm like, you know, whatever. And he was like, well, you know, I need it to sleep if I don't have it. And I asked him, well, how long have you been smoking weed? And he said about 10 years. So then I asked, well, how much longer are you going to have to do it? And it was something that he never considered. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, you needed to sleep. So you use this, you added this to be able to sleep. But at one point in your life, you were sleeping without weed, I'd imagine, you know, the newborn baby, you know, with the smoke being blown in his face. You know, no, you were going to sleep, and then at some point you started smoking weed. Well, I'm just asking you, how long, like, what does it look like? The removal of this eventually, you know, to the point where you're back, you know, reliant on yourself. And he had never thought about it. So the cost of your attention is that you don't even conceptualize your life as an independent pursuit of potential. Potential is a very, you know, abstract word, touchy-feely word that really doesn't have a lot of, you know, weight to it. So when I use potential, I'm talking about whatever the ladder leads you to. If, you know, you guys have heard my ladder model before, you know, everybody, I didn't create the thing, but I use it, you know, pretty, you know, consistently. Every individual should be looking to climb his ladder. The ladder represents a form of pressure, a ritual based in pressure, and it allows us to continue to move, movement being mandatory, and we develop, we evolve. It's not always linear, right? There's always these power detours, I call them, where, you know, we start traveling up this ladder and through these obstacles, and the other side of these obstacles, we learn new information, and that new information informs a pivot that we make towards another goal based on this new information we have, and that's fine. That should be encouraged. We don't want to have the blinders on, right? I told you the story about the 8-year-old who told me he wanted to be a police officer, and then I saw him at like 20 and he was a police officer. And I was thinking to myself, like, everybody's like, oh, isn't that great? No, he wanted to be a police officer since he was young. And, my reaction was, that I kept to myself, was, damn, you had it figured out at 8? So from 8 to 20, nothing? Like, no new experiences, no new, like, that's it? Like, I'm going to be a cop at 8 years old, you had it figured out? So he's still running the formula or the map that he designed at 8. Good or bad, it's just, for me, it's like, man, I want to inspect that a little bit more and see if there wasn't some blinders, at some point, which I would assume there is, right? So the cost of your attention is you committing to you investing in you. And along with you investing in you, all those people that rely on you, you are also eliminating the power that they will receive being allied with you when you give and waste your attention in the form of time and energy to the disconnected. So the cost is greater than people understand. The cost is greater than people understand. A thing in business, a very common phenomenon in business is that, people don't want to market, right? And listen, like anybody else, during my process, I've suffered from a lot of these things too, which is why a lot of times I have a good understanding of them because I've been on both sides of them. And you'll have individuals that they don't want to spend any efforts marketing or resources marketing. And one of the things that is lost in this pursuit of doing business is the money that's being left on the table, right? The money that's being left on the table is represented by what would be the outcome of you investing in marketing. I don't want to market. Why not? It's going to cost me $500 a month, right? And, at my peak marketing budget, I think I was spending maybe $2,000 a month, I was not a huge marketer, but like when $500 a month for some market, whatever that marketing, campaign represents, let's just say $500. But let's just say with that marketing, when we do that $500, investment in marketing, and you get back more than that 500 as a return, it doesn't cost you 500. Marketing doesn't cost you $500. At that point, the ritual of marketing earns you whatever that net positive is. So it's a paradigm shift for a lot of people. And it's very hard to argue giving up that $500 with somebody who can't think in those terms. So I'll use that concept to look at the individual and ask, well, all these changes that you're not making, what benefits are you also not experiencing as a result? Because if you have the ability to make those adjustments in your life, then you absolutely are losing those benefits that those adjustments would give you. So the person who spends $500 a month on marketing and makes back $1,000 in profit for every 500, every month that he's not investing that 500, he's losing $1,000. But it's hard for somebody to think that way if the only way they measure that entire scenario is by looking at their bank account and go, no, I didn't lose any money. Look, it's the same amount. It's not $500 lower either. That's how people talk about their potential. That's how people talk about the relationship they have with their rituals. Yeah, well, you know what? That's, exercise, I don't like exercise. What do you mean you don't like exercise? I work out twice a week. Well, what do you do the rest of the 5 days? Do you lay in like a hospital bed with a fucking bedpan under you? It's like, just moving is exercise. We have these relationships with these pivotal, just powerful aspects of our lives, and we've allowed these narratives to form that just sabotage us at every end. Oh, I didn't have time to exercise today. You didn't have the time to stand up and sit down repetitively? I don't understand that. I mean, you literally, I'm here at my desk. I don't have time to exercise. I'm sitting on a chair right now. I can do this 200 fucking times and my legs are going to be on fire. I'm going to burn calories. It's just a very limited way to write a story where it's never your fault. So that's the cost of your attention. The cost of your attention is that you lose every bit of potential and benefit that you would have earned if you took your attention back and invested it in yourself. So, how does a focused life differ from this one? So, the watching versus living, dynamic that I spoke about in the beginning. If all of these sabotaging rituals are under the umbrella of watching, a watching lifestyle. Well, what does a living lifestyle look like? It's a focused one. It's the process that I started describing earlier on in this talk, where I said you wake up and you think about you think about who you are. You don't just think about what the to-do list is. You think about your feet, your hands, your head, your breathing, right? Your back, your joints, the temperature, the smells and sights and sounds around you. You allow yourself to not stay plugged into this story. You could plug into the story whenever you want, but you know that you are plugging into it, and you know that you exist outside of it. But you can't do that if you're waking up every morning and just getting on that wheel and running on that wheel, right? Like the rat that you are. Somebody giving you permission, okay, you can get off the wheel now. And then you go and you do something else that is really just another wheel. But because you're not hungry, because your dopamine's hitting, because you have this visual, relationship with whatever stimulus that you're using, you lie to yourself every day. Right? You lie to yourself every single day. So how does a focused life differ? You realize that I need to move a little bit. I have people that I care about that I don't contact very often. I'm waking up every day complaining about all the things that people and things aren't doing for me, as opposed to building some sort of balanced relationship with the experience and asking myself, well, what can I do to help these individuals? Because obviously, if I invest in the people around me, the rising tide raises all ships. Somebody who's stuck watching life, they don't have time to think about these things. So, let me get to some comments here. All right. Sacred Strength, what's up? Cherrytown Vibe, what's up, brother? What's up, Joe? Z10, what's going on? Let's see what Z10 Nova. I think Nova, November 4th. Okay, it might be November 4th. I'm going to call you Z10. Modern society is all about living vicariously through checkmark approved folks they can use to push an agenda. And I agree. And let me add to that. Why wouldn't modern society be like that, right? Why wouldn't all these people that are in a position of influence, a position of control, why would we expect them to do something differently? When the evil billionaire is moving the chess pieces to make more evil billions, we could have a lot of criticisms of the morality of that individual, right? The humanity even of that individual, but not the logic of the individual, not the strategy of the individual, right? So we have to sort of get away from looking at this in a way that we become dysfunctionally emotional. So many angry people right now. So many angry people. I get fired up about things all the time. But at the end of it, that fire needs to be used to forge something of value in my life. But you have people that just get really, really angry, and then they just cool down. And then they get really, really angry, and then they just cool down. And they're not doing anything as a result of that. They're just wasting these rituals. They're giving energy and emotion to things that are never going to give them a return. So when we look at these people who are being, either used by those in control or the controllers themselves, we have to change the narrative, our relationship with it, and ask ourselves, well, why am I expecting something different out of these people? And ultimately, what does that have to do with what I'm doing today, with what I'm doing tomorrow? Right? $12 says, I don't know if it's me, but the last couple of streams I've watched, the stream is out of sync. I'll tell you right now, $12, I am about to get rid of this service, right? So you guys right now are watching me on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And I think there's a good chance I'm going to get rid of this service. I don't know if it's a service, but it's fucking pissing me off. But I've been trying all these different things to fix the sync issue. So I apologize for that, but I'm on it. I do have a fancy microphone, though, so hopefully my audio is good. Mongoloid Man says, wouldn't you rather die for something you care about? Is a question too few ask themselves. Right, and what I've said before, and I've had conversations with a lot of great friends of mine who have, we've wrestled and developed, what this position is. It's really... a man should have things more important to him than his life, right? And if you're an individual who doesn't have anything more important to him than his own life, think about the futility of that, being that he's going to die one day anyway. Because so even his life is worthless in those terms, right? So it's really an opportunity that we have every day to build something, to write a story, in time, not just let me try and feel as much pleasure as I can today. Let me get away without dying again, like the rat does, right? What's up, Ruski? Johnny Groove, what's up, brother man? Logan says, be a slave, consume poison disguised as food, consume alcohol disguised as fun, consume media designed to make you a retard, take experimental pharmaceuticals disguised as health. And that is the narrative. I was talking with an individual, one of my coaching students a couple of days ago, and I was talking about this paradigm that needs to be shifted in men, in that they see themselves as being in powerful positions or as succeeding in life when we match their lives up against these universal virtues, right, that we've held in civilization as being virtuous, from day one because of their values. You see that they're nothing more than slaves. But to run with the slave metaphor for a second, they consider themselves as better than slaves because they're slaves that live in the house, right? They're the house slaves. They're not the field slaves. And they see themselves as, okay, if I'm the field slave, some people are like, I need my freedom. Other people are like, I need to find a way to get into that house. Those slaves in there live like kings. But they only live like kings when compared to the field slaves. So this idea of freedom is something that needs to be rooted in the core of who you are. That needs to inform every position that's developed after that. But if you start every day with the outside in, you're never going to achieve it. Always good info, and I love getting complimented by a man named Super Honky. Cherrytown Vibe asks, what's the difference between it being a healthy conversation and a plain old distraction? Well, I would ask, what's the purpose of the conversation? Like, it's easy to assume, and operate under the assumption that, conversations are always good. Conversations allow us to develop, but what I was just getting into at the end of that last sentence is, well, the benefits. So what are the benefits of the conversation? Because if you can't articulate them, then you shouldn't be having the conversation. You should be able to, you should have to earn a right to have a conversation because you've already done the work necessary to understand the benefit of that conversation. Because if there is not a consequence of value, then yeah, you're wasting time. Oh, but some people I just want to, some people times I like talking to people and we have these great conversations. Okay, no problem. Both of you do squats while you're talking, man. Good question though. Voodoo Man says, burning the rep of hearing another viewpoint and contemplating other viewpoints, especially outside the tribe, isn't as important as the context of topic. It's leaving the circle jerk. It's exposure. And one of the things that people don't get, especially in this society, is what that tribal wall is. Talking with one of my coaching students the other day, and he actually sent me back a recap of our session, talking about this, is the difference when somebody number one has a tribal wall. Right? And tribal wall is us and them, not us versus them, but there's a distinction between us and them. And the line between, I call the tribal wall. Well, a lot of individuals, they stand on that wall looking out. And everything of significance and value for that individual has to come from where he's focusing his energy. But the people that truly become stronger are the ones that turn around and face in. And they invest in their brothers, their sisters, their wives, their husbands, their sons, their daughters. The people that are connected to them in those growing concentric circles of alliance. Those are the people that are crushing it. Those are the people that they wake up every day with purpose, invigorated, with energy. That tribal wall is a concept that everybody needs to come to grips with. You don't have to use my terminology. I'm certainly not the one that thought of tribe, and us versus them, us and them, us with them, us or them, whatever. But us, them are two different values that people need to define in their lives. FL Treasure, what's going on? He says, when you pay attention to something or a person, you are literally paying with a portion of your life, your time, your energies that you will never get back. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. I remember having a talk a few years ago with one of my coaching students, and he watches from time to time. Shout out to him if he's watching. I'm not going to say his name, but we're having a conversation about how he was spending his days. Like, what did his rituals look like from day to day? And at some point, he was having some difficulty at work. And as an aside, he was taking this course on getting an advanced degree in whatever it was he was going to college for. And he was former military and was having the education paid for by the military. But looking at the landscape of his life, I really questioned the validity of spending so much time pursuing this degree. It wasn't going to improve his life. It wasn't going to improve the caliber of his experience. It was going to put a paper on a wall. And one of the things that he told me, he's like, well, the military pays for it, so it doesn't cost me anything. Now, this individual, which is why I won't say his name because it's a little personal, had his father pass away, some short time before that, maybe a year prior to this. And this was such a powerful conversation. I still recall it all these years later. I don't know what I had for breakfast yesterday, but this is an important thing, a significant thing. And he said, well, I just go, I think it was maybe once or twice a week, and it doesn't cost me anything because the military's paying for it. So I said, well, let me ask you. How much money would you pay for another day with your father? And he was taken aback for a moment, and he's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, if you had money, if you had all the money in the world, what do you think it would cost for another day with your father? And he says, well, MC, like, obviously, it's impossible. There is no amount of money. I said, so don't ever sit here thinking that your time is not an expense. He was going and spending all this time taking this course, and he was telling himself it wasn't costing him anything because they were footing the monetary bill, but he never accounted for the time that he was investing in it. And it wasn't that, this was costing you so much money, that's why you shouldn't do it. That's not the terms that I think in. It's what is the end result of the entire experience, the ritual. What is the return on investment of everything that you're giving towards this endeavor? And I just was coming up with a blank. Sorry, you going to college, maybe it'll make you feel good to have the picture of the plaque on the wall and be able to tell people I have a degree and whatever the fuck he was going to school for. But I'm the one that was saying you're spending a lot of time that could be invested in other areas of your life that will actually build a foundation worth the shit that you can build upon. So we cannot ever diminish or undervalue the significance of time. It is literally priceless. Logan says cell phones are so diabolical. It's funny. Been talking about this lately, offline with a bunch of individuals. This the revolution of AI, right? With artificial intelligence, you have a tool potentially for productivity, creativity. All of these positive outcomes can be achieved, improved upon with the use of this technology. I liken it to the cell phone. Now, there are other technological advances that are on this timeline, but the cell phone was, I think, the last generational change of technology, the evolution of technology that was supposed to improve the experience of life, but wound up doing the opposite. Here's the thing about AI that people aren't going to want to accept. Artists, you're done. Writers, you'll be done. Anybody that has honed a skill that could be reproduced by AI is done. And what's going to wind up happening, without talking about the implications of how one should adjust themselves, because stay tuned for that later. But what's going to wind up happening is, I want you to look for a second. Look at how dumb cell phones made people. Look at how stupid people are now because of cell phones. What do you think AI is going to do to these people now? What do you think AI is going to do to these people? They don't even have to write reports anymore. They don't have to creatively design any bit of writing. If you guys look at the title card for today's show, pretty cool AI generated image that I used, right? I've been in this game long enough to know that if I hired an artist, if I went to Fiverr or Upwork, any one of these freelance sites and hired an artist to replicate that, it would cost me $50 to $100, and it would take anywhere from 3 to 7 days to get that. I'd have to spend time, because the guy's either in the Philippines or fucking Pakistan, so there's going to be revisions, and that image, 30, 40 seconds. 30, 40 seconds. And you will have artists that will say, well, that's not real art. That's plagiarized art. That's art. That's not real art. If you're an artist, you understand the difference between this generated nonsense and actual creative skill, mastery. And hey, who am I to argue with the skilled artist? But why do you think the people that it matters to have the same eye that you do? Why do you think that people are going to be able to tell the difference? Because they're not. Because they're fucking stupid. And here's the thing. Hate to be Mr. Doom and Gloom, there's no saving them. I just shared before the metaphor of standing on your tribal wall and turning inward and saying, these are the people I need to empower. These are the people that I need to bring up. It doesn't mean you ignore the outside world. It means you find the people that are worth a shit and you build alliances, because once you have alliances of worth, they're in this wall as well. Years ago, I shared a Dan Kennedy quote: recruit, don't convert. These 20-something-year-olds, in different cities around the country that are hitting old ladies over the head with with sticks and robbing them and shooting into the crowds, and this is a degeneration of society that I could almost lockstep connect to the advancement of technology. Now, I wasn't even going to get into this today, but just to finish the thought. You see, to simplify a two-group dichotomy in life, I will say that there are climbers and there are sitters. Climbers and sitters. Now, when everybody is on the ground floor, the climbers are walking around trying to climb on the same floor. And they're working. They're trying to do a thing. They're trying to make busy work because they need to climb, but there's nothing to climb. The sitters are sitting there a lot of times making fun of the climbers. Going, look, you're doing all this work. You're in the same place I am. You're wasting all that energy. But then a funny thing happens. Because the climber has never sat on his ass and became a sitter, he has the ability that the sitters don't, which comes to fruition when a ladder gets dropped between them. Because now the climber has the wherewithal to get on it and leave the sitter. And the sitter, he doesn't have the strength to get on the ladder. He's never trained to be on a ladder. So now that it's there, what does he do? He mocks the ladder. He blames people for the ladder. Look at the disparity between what that climber has and what I have. It's not fair. Whenever technology advances, it represents a ladder being put on the current generation. And in that current generation is going to be climbers, but there's also going to be sitters. And those sitters are going to get that much more separated from the climbers. With AI right now, kids don't have to, with AI, with Google, with cell phone technology, kids don't have to read. They don't have to do math. They don't have to learn how to write creatively. They don't know how to be artistic. Not a lot of stuff they have to do to get by. Not a lot of pressure that those things once represented. And that pressure being part of the process that forged the citizens that made great countries like the U.S. Those times are gone, and it could be depressing if you let it. And I would say if you're depressed about hearing the futility of so many people's efforts nowadays, I would say that you've been living under an illusion, because their future has always been futile. There's always been a disparity. And it's always come down to, well, listen, if you're going to help anybody, help yourself first. Help your tribe next. And if you want to help other people, focusing on you and then your tribe is going to put you in the best position to do it anyway. Hope that makes sense. All right, guys. Man, I appreciate it. You guys are killing it over here with the comments, and I appreciate it. I'm here every week. You guys know that. If you're not on my email list, please do that. I take it, seriously, at least sincerely, to draw the distinction, that Alan Watts once did. Alan Watts says, don't take yourself seriously. Take yourself sincerely. And I want you guys to know, those of you that invest in my efforts, my projects, my content, I take you very sincerely. I don't think you should be getting notifications from social media. I've said before, I did a whole email autoresponder list on why you should get off of social media. The conclusion of it was you should be on social media for 2 reasons. Number 1, to make money. A lot of sitters out there. Number 2, to connect with tribes of like-minded individuals that may not be in the real world where you exist. And to that latter condition, I hope that I qualify for those of you that watch my content. And I appreciate you for doing that. MasterChim.com to get on the email. I'll be here next week. Appreciate you guys. And as always, brothers and sisters, pressure to power.